And Jared, hit me with that flurry.
I've had a lot of people asking me about the origin story of Scrub Scrab, so that's what I'm going to try to cover today. I was bullied hard as a kid, at home, in school, basically everywhere I went. I didn't have any friends. I didn't fit on sports teams. There wasn't really a spot for me. I remember trying skaters, thinking these kids don't really fit in. Maybe I'll be all right over there. And I got picked on by the skaters, thrown into garbage cans, stuffed into lockers, all of the quintessential bullying stuff I experienced. And then I switched high schools in the beginning of my freshman year and went from a relatively ritzy East Lyme High School to NFA, which was a little more urban. And so the bullying got intensified, as one would imagine it would. And I had lunch money taken from me. This was the hardest few-day stretch where I took 2 sets of lunch money into school so that I could give one to the bullies and then still be able to eat. And that was really hard. Like, that was really difficult to do. It broke me down. And one day, these 3 kids trapped me, and I punched one of them. And I'll never forget the way they reacted. They were all like when Simba roared and the 3 hyenas had him cornered and Mufasa was behind him. And he roared and looked up and they were all like, oh shit. That was the moment. And you look in their eyes and there's fear and confusion. And they don't know what to do next. And it was this, like, it took me a long time to get my head around really what had happened there. And I kind of went too far the other way over the next couple of weeks. I'd say I kind of turned into the bully a little bit. You couldn't say anything sideways to me without catching one. And a few fights later, I'm all pumped up. I'm like, I'm going to go into a boxing gym. 14 years old, freshman in high school, walk into a boxing gym for the first time. And had another really rude awakening where I realized the best street fighters in the world were going to get smashed walking into a gym with any boxers. That there were amateur boxers that were like 2-18 that will beat up the toughest kid you know. I didn't realize that, so I slowly started turning into. I've said before, I might be as tough today after. What are we looking at? 28 years of boxing on and off. I might be as tough today as I thought I was when I first walked into the gym. So figuring that out really woke me up to the fact that these kids that were picking on me didn't know how to fight. They didn't want to fight. They were puffing up in an animalistic, like a barking sense. But there was no bite attached to it. And I realized this was true of most of the tough guys, that you might think that the gangsters and that people in prison or the motorcycle clubs would have a better percentage of people who could really fight. And they don't. The numbers really don't fit one demographic to the next until you end up in actual fighters. So knowing this, I started applying it to my life. And then it's a friend of mine's birthday party, and the kid's 5'9", 150 pounds. And he's having a birthday, and turning 20 to 25, let's say. And another buddy of mine is like 6'4", 285. He starts running up behind him and punching him. Punched him in the shoulder. Bam! And the kid went down. You know, he's like twice this kid's size and just hammered him. And I think it was the 3rd or 4th one. I think it was the 4th punch that really set me off. He comes up behind him and gave him a dead leg in the back of his leg. Pow! And the smaller kid just crumbled on the ground. And the toe leans in and goes, 4. So that meant the kid had like 20 plus of these coming, right? And I finally said, if you face him and fight him, I think you'll be surprised how much harder he is to hit. I got these guys' wrists wrapped up. I got gloves on him, and they boxed a little bit. And the smaller guy held his own. He smacked the bigger guy around a bit. You know, he had a lot of trouble. This bigger kid couldn't corner him, couldn't catch him, couldn't touch him with anything because they were facing each other. And they had a totally different relationship for the rest of that night than they would have before that. The second situation like that was Dizzle and this kid Dan, who was talking about his car being faster, and he was real proud of his car for some reason. He'd been drinking. He was talking a line. Finally, Dizzle had just had it. Wrap your wrists up. Dan was like, "Are you serious? I'm so down with it." We went out in the garage. Dizzle beat the snot literally out of this kid. And everybody that was there was like, I would like to try that. So we set up for a couple months down the road. We scheduled a bunch of fights. 4 of them ended up going on. My little brother had been calling me out for a while. We ended up fighting on that card, and that was the first Scrub Scraps event. And we've done 62 of those over the last 17 years since. But that's kind of how it started. And like I said, I'm almost as tough today as I thought I was at 14 when I first walked into that gym.
That's great. And like kids that age, they need stuff like that. They need that. And yeah, hopefully everything goes well and you continue that.
Definitely. Thank you, brother.
But